Alright guys, how's it going, and welcome back to another video here on the EGL channel. Of course, the kickoff was this weekend. We got to see our first competitive, on a certain respect, view of Call of Duty Cold War, of course, and yes, I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I didn't get to catch all of it, just with it being late and being busy doing other things this weekend, but I did get to have a good look through the VOD and what I thought of it, and honestly really thought that the whole team killed the broadcast. It looked absolutely fantastic, and I thought all the talent were amazing as well. It'd be nice to see Merc and Maven back in there, of course, at some point whenever they get figured out whatever is going on in that respect. But today's video isn't so much about the kickoff and what we've seen during that, because I think, you know, you can try and read into these matches so much. I think the players were at least trying to say it was a glorified scrim, etc, etc. I don't know if it's like to that end of things. I think it's a little bit serious in a certain respect, but I don't think it was necessarily as low as they were putting it. But let's jump into something that hasn't necessarily been talked about too much, as it happened over the weekend. Of course, it has been talked about in this scene specifically. Of course, the Call of Duty Challengers Elite got properly announced. We got an idea of when things are kicking off. To let you guys know what the Elite is, it's basically the top Challenger teams in Europe and North America. Sadly, the APAC region haven't been given an allocation for this one, which is a shame. It really is. I mean, that's a completely different topic, but besides the point, Europe and North America, it's the top teams through Challengers are going to be in the league against each other, and it's going to be super interesting. Let's go through it and talk about the qualifiers. Are obviously coming up very shortly, and of course that is coming up not this weekend, sorry, it's the 6th of February coming up for all regions, obviously in EU and NA. That's going to be super interesting. I'm sure that Shift and the boys are going to be covering it. I'll be jumping in myself as well to get an idea of who's going to come in to finish. But of course, the first season is going to only have so many teams. Of course, Qualifier 1, 8 teams are left, and Qualifiers 2 to 5, which we'll get into in a second, obviously are affected with relegation, etc, etc. It's kind of, you know, like, I mean, we're already looking straight past what we're talking about originally here and going into the depth of it. It's kind of probably what people would have liked to see for the pro side of things, in terms of, you know, teams can be relegated, etc, etc. It's sort of what franchise kind of takes away from it. There's not really any sort of bad side to having a bad time, of course, in the franchise league. If you finish last, it doesn't really matter. You can just pick up a team next year. But, you know, it's one of those things where we do have consequence for not playing well throughout this. But of course, the elite seasons are the ones that are going to be coming up. That's why these qualifiers are there for certain days, of course. We'll get the mouse in the right bit, of course, but season 2, 3, 4, 5 qualifiers further down the line. Format, let's break it down. Every team plays a minimum of seven matches. The 6 top performing teams advance to either the double elimination knockout bracket or the single elimination playoff bracket. 4 teams that make it the playoff bracket remain elite for subsequent seasons. So basically, for the whole thing, there is prizing, which we'll delve into in a second as well. I don't want to get too caught up on the format, but it's a format that I do like. You play throughout the weeks, and then it goes into a knockout tournament to determine the winner of the season. 5 seasons in total for EU and NA Challengers. So it's good to have these things as well. Something that is important as well. Select Call of Duty Challengers League matches will be broadcast on the official Call of Duty League YouTube channel. I don't know if anybody knows anyone who would help with broadcasting that, or maybe casting over it. I don't know if you do know anybody, let me know in the comments. Every team is guaranteed to be on stream at least one time during the league. I think it's important though, like, besides the joke, of course, it's one of these things that the Challengers, they aren't involved in franchise, and it's a big step to that direction as well. It's a big commitment, especially I would say for the European Challenger scene. I think it's very much harder for them to get on a full franchised roster than it is for some of the guys over in North America. Of course, you've got visas, etc, etc. It's just COVID, travel, everything. It's just up in the air with that. So this is solid for me. I think it's very good how they brought it in and how it's going to be playing. Of course, it's not just coming down to who gets in there first, is there all the way through. There is relegation, as it's been mentioned, single elimination playoff bracket, which is going to include teams who have qualified through to then go up against and try and find themselves in a spot. So we're going to see some high tension, to be honest with you. There's plenty on the line anyway. We'll sort of forward tracking here, but you get to the point where you get the end of the season, there's the knockout, and then the prizing is there, of course. Pro points, I'm not 100% sure how much that really comes into it. I don't know if it's going to come into it further down the line, but I mean, nonetheless, prizing for each season, $20,000 for first place. So, I mean, that's a big tournament that's going to be coming towards the end of the split. I mean, the end of each season, so what, 20, 30, another, I mean, what is it, like 50,000 each season? In that case, we do actually have the prizing up here as well. Let's just bring this down. So that's for champs, which we'll get to in a second. But first, okay, well, it doesn't have it specifically. Let's work out the maths very quickly. quickly. We'll add the text in here. Either way, it's a lot of prize pool for 5 seasons. You got 5 of that. It's fantastic to see. You can see the allocation for the whole of Elite 500,000, which is really, really good. So 250,000. So it must be 50,000 prize pool per region over each season. 5 seasons, that's fantastic. That's a really big prize pool for people to compete. And the main point of this is that it allows the challenger scene to have investment from the outside, if you like. You know, teams are going to be wanting to pick up fully fledged rosters. This is sort of to the point of where it is, you know, it can't be salary. It should have that amount of attention to it. I think it'll do very well on the broadcast side of things as well, so I think that's going to encourage more and more orgs to get involved, to allow more people to be full-time COD players, which is what these challengers want to do. Now let's move on very so slightly. I really love the elite side of things. I think this is fantastic. Of course, if you do get relegated, I mean, you still get prize pools, so it's not the end of the world. Cups are still ongoing, opens as well. This is something that's going to go obviously hand in hand with what's going on in the CDL side of things. That's also fantastic. Of course, the elite is sort of where it's at, but for these opens, those elite teams are going to have their chance, but it's also going to be a really good chance to see other teams outside of elite and see what they can do, and sort of they can stake their claim to try and get themselves into the elite, or obviously do well in open. And something else that was put in there, of course, champs. I mean, NA and EU, I kind of want to think to myself that is going to be a big event, but I mean, how can you say with what's going on with COVID right now? But either way, I would say NA and EU. I think what the allocation that would make sense. Champs 250. So what would that? Well, what 60? Yeah, that would. Okay, so that should be NA and EU. So 40,000 for EU first, 40,000 for NA first. So of course, that's a good chunk of prize pool across the board for everybody. That's towards the end of the season. But I just like, I mean, look. Let's not get it twisted here. There is what, 1.38 million on offer. I hope that maths was right, or else I'll be getting slaughtered. But there's plenty on offer for the challenger side, this sort of things. I think the elite idea is the best idea they've had in a while. This sort of this thing that we said for these teams to have. There needs to be another level. It felt as if there's franchising and then it was challengers. It was just there. But whereas this is now putting more of a statement on it as well. Of course, I think it's a shame that the qualifier is not being streamed, but that's besides the point. I think the fact that there is, of course, the whole thing being streamed, it's very much coming down to you having to compete on a live stream with plenty of viewers. It's going to give you that recognition as a player if you need it. It's going to give you that recognition as a player if you don't need it. There's just a lot of good things to talk about when it comes to the Elite series, of course. I'm very, very excited for it. I'm really excited to see how it goes down. They're going to be broadcast as well, so that's going to be very good. And we're just super interested to get into it. I really want to see how it's going to go down. Of course, the qualifier is going to be going on. Please make sure you watch out for links for that when it does come up. Of course, coming up on the 6th and 7th. Very interested to see how that goes down and see who gets into the elite seasons. But let me know what you think of the challenger side of things this year. Obviously, I mean, I don't think anyone could question that it's an improvement. It 100% is an improvement on what we seen last year for the challengers teams. Full representation on stream. Big prize pools, different various divisions that you can be relegated, you can get promoted up into. It's just basically like what we had in when it was the Pro League. When we're talking like way back in previous Call of Duties before franchising came into it. It was that Pro League scene, and you could get relegated, you could get promoted into it. It's sort of just like that underneath the franchising side of things. I think it's really, really good. I think the EU community are going to be phenomenally happy about this, I have to say. I think the NA side of things as well, it's great for them. They've got an easier transition into that franchise model, I would say. Whereas the EU side don't necessarily. But at the same time, I do feel bad for the APAC region. Let me know what you think about that below it as well. But please give the video a like and also subscribe if you have not. And we will see you for the next CDL talk with Tunn. See you then.